And good morning. Welcome to the DFS Minute, the AM edition. I'm your host, Michael Rathburn, aka Rath. Find me on Twitter at FantasyWrath. Welcome to rotocurve.com. It's Friday morning, June 12th, 2015. And we like to think is your cup of coffee with the DFS in the morning. We like to think is your first take of DFS information in the morning. Get you set up for the Curve Show at 12 noon today with Josh. And hopefully Benny's doing okay. Benny had to have a wisdom tooth extracted last night about 9 o'clock. And so we got Benny on the DL. We got Josh stepping up to the plate. Looking forward to it today, 12 o'clock noon Eastern on the Curve Show. Hope Benny's doing well. Last night, Josh and DFS Viz were the two winners of the head-to-head bracket challenge. They're going to face off tonight in the finals. Excited for these guys, and just it's been a lot of fun. That's really what it comes down to. It's been fun. It's not about the money. Although Jason, our co-founder here, along with myself on RotoCurve, did throw up a $100 spiff along with a free fleece and T-shirt. So you're probably looking at close to a $200 package for the winner. So we're going to hopefully run it again next week, hopefully double the field from 16 to 32 and see how it goes. And if we continue to get more activity on these things, we're going to run them every week. So definitely looking forward to that. What I'm going to hit is I'm going to let you know about some tournaments I think you need to be focused on today. Going to let you know about some pricing that I think you need to know about today. And then we're going to do a rundown on pitchers. I'm not necessarily going to give picks. I'm just going to kind of lay the slate down for you and give you some observations, talk about a couple of the run totals, and then talk about a potential sneaky play that I think might be in play tonight. Sneaky team that might be in play tonight. So let's talk about single entry GPPs. That's what we always mention here at RotoCurve. You want to go single entry tournaments over on FanDuel tonight. Look for these three. You got the $1 bunt, the $5 single, the $10 ace. $1 bunt's a 10 grand prize pool. $5 single is a 3K prize pool, and the $10 ace is a 4K prize pool. That's $16 worth of GPPs. Whether you play a 1, a 5, or a 10, whatever your bankroll is. If you play $10 a night, play the 1. Play $50 a night, play the 5. If you play $100 a night, play the 10. If you play $150, then play all 3. But that's how you typically want to do it. Okay, there's enough single entry tournaments out there. Now it's not. I don't think it's enough. Let me rephrase that. If you're a smaller stakes player playing less than $100 a night, you can jump in these single entry GPPs and be fine. If you're playing more than $150 a night, that's kind of where you're probably going to have to play some multi-entry, and then we can talk about which multi-entries are probably the safest. But that's something we'll talk about next week. But I think for right now, with the audience that we have, the smaller stakes players, the newer players, I'm recommending that you play those 3 tournaments only on FanDuel. Don't chase the 250,000, 100,000. Don't chase any of that stuff, because all it's going to do is burn your bankroll. Okay, so those 3 GPPs over on FanDuel. Now, on DraftKings, different story today because they got Summer Games promos running. So here's the thing with DraftKings. This is very interesting. You may want to play more tournaments on DraftKings today, because here's what's going on. You got the 1 game at 4 o'clock. So what you can do is there's 4 single entry GPPs on DraftKings today. There's a 1, a 5, a 12, and a 27. Starting at 4 o'clock, which is all day. Put in and there could be overlay in these things. Put in a dummy lineup. And if you see at 3:30, if these things are 3:45 and they look like they're running short, scoop in, put in a dummy lineup where all your guys are starting at 7 o'clock. Then what you do is later on, once all the lineups come out for the 7 o'clock games and later, then you make your roster. Or if you feel strongly about using Hamill or Cueto, which I think are in pretty good matchups and pretty good pricing, you can throw in a Hamill or Cueto along with a dummy pitcher and then the dummy lineup and be fine that way as well. So it's definitely a way for you to take advantage of the late swap over on DraftKings. Now, at 7 o'clock, this is where the big guns come out. And I already put this out on Twitter this morning. We got to give DraftKings a lot of credit here. They have stepped up. They're putting up $60,000 worth of guaranteed prize pool tournaments tonight that are single entry. $100 entry, $30,000 prize pool. $20,000 prize pool, $10 entry. $10,000 prize pool, $1 entry. That's $60K worth of guaranteed prize pools that they're putting out there. And basically, guys like me who have been the single entry, flag bearers, need to promote these things, and it's on us as content sites to promote these things, because if they don't fill, they're not going to run them again. So this is our shot to really, get the word out there today that you need to be playing in these things and how important it is, because if they fill, they will run them again. If they don't fill, they will not run them again, or they'll run them at reduced prize pools. So just be aware that if you are a guy that's been bitching about single entry, multi-entry, whatever, you need to play these tonight. Okay, just make a notable effort to get into some of this stuff tonight and support the single entry contest that these sites are putting up. Now, in addition to those 3 big GPPs, they're still running the 1, the 5, the 12, and the 27 smaller ones that they always run every day. So again, it's over $60,000 worth of guaranteed prize pools over on DraftKings that are single entry tournaments. So let's step up tonight and play some single entry tournaments. Some observations that I've made while looking over salaries. One of the things I'll notice and tell you about on FanDuel that I've noticed, especially for today, and I don't know if it's been going on all year, but I definitely noticed it today because there was one guy that stood out, and I saw Lorenzo Cain sitting there at $2,500, and I thought, wow, that seems very cheap. Here's the deal. I went through and I scanned the FanDuel salaries. I look at what guys do over the last 2 weeks, over the last 7 days, and it really looks like FanDuel's algorithm is dropping players who are having a bad week. So if the player has been bad over a 7-day stretch, it really looks like their salary has taken a hit. Now, it hasn't necessarily taken a hit all in one day, but there are some guys that have dropped $300, $400, $500, and that is significant on FanDuel, because it's not like DraftKings where there's that dynamic pricing where it's going up and down based on park, based on pitcher and handedness. You're really looking at where you can find value. The guy that really stood out for me, Adrian Gonzalez, is all the way down to $3,400. He gets Despaigne today, and it's in Petco, but for me, it doesn't matter. So Adrian Gonzalez all the way down to $3,400 today. There's a lot of top-heavy pitching, and I think if you look on FanDuel and you look at what guys have done look at what guys have done over the last 7 days, and then look at maybe what they've done over the last 15 and compare. If a guy's been good, let's say he was good 2 weeks ago, but he hasn't been good over the past week, and he has a really good matchup and his price is reflective, it's really hard to pass on Adrian Gonzalez at $3,400, because even though you don't feel like you're dropping down, we always tell you to pay up at first base. You're getting a stud. You're not having to pay $5,600, $5,300 like you do with Goldschmidt. You're getting Adrian Gonzalez at $3,400 against a very bad right-handed pitcher. So again, review the FanDuel salaries today. As I go out throughout the day and chat or in forum, I might post where I think there are some guys that just really scream value to me based on matchup, based on price. Maybe they're not doing that great over the past 7 days, but maybe they got a really good matchup tonight, and that's where we pounce. Now, over on DraftKings, we know that they adjust based on opposing pitcher, but I think there's some very interesting pricing changes today that I'm going to run down. The Braves pricing, especially left-handed bats, have dropped against Bartolo Colon. It may be due to the park, but here's the thing. If I can get Freddie Freeman at a discount against Bartolo Colon, I'm going to jump on it. I'm not worried about the park. The White Sox bats have dropped against Matt Andriese from Tampa Bay. Now, I know the White Sox bats aren't that good, but still there are some guys in the lineup that aren't bad. You're probably looking at more of a tournament stack option. And if it goes off, then you're really gonna have the nuts. The Royals bats have dropped against Jaime Garcia. I know a lot of Royals are left-handed. Garcia's lefty, so I think that's the case there. But still, it's not like Garcia's an ace. And, I know they go to the National League and they lose the DH, but still, the Royals are pretty good. I think, again, these are more like options for large field tournaments where I feel like maybe these bats are going to be lower owned and you're getting them at a discount. The other one that dropped was in the same game. The St. Louis Cardinals bats have dropped significantly against Yordano Ventura. Now, Ventura does have the ability of going out there and having a monster game, but still, when you're getting a significant drop in price, when you see 20 to 30% price drops on players, and it's not Felix and it's not Kershaw, and it's not one of these top guys, then that leads me to believe that, hey, in a tournament, no one's going to be on these guys. You're going to get them super cheap. You can basically load up on a couple other big bats for the night and work around a Cardinals stack. and really be contrarian in that spot. So I think those are some interesting plays that you might be able to do tonight. Let's run down pitching because there's some big pitching tonight, but two of them are in the 4 o'clock game. Cueto and Hamill go at 4. Reds against the Cubs. Cueto is 10.8 on FanDuel. He's 9.7 on DraftKings, so definitely like him more on DraftKings. And Hamill is 9.4 on FanDuel and 9 on DraftKings. So actually it looks like he's a better value over on FanDuel. But I don't necessarily want to play him on FanDuel because I have to go put him in at 4 o'clock. So no play for me over on FanDuel for both those guys. But I do like Cueto on DraftKings because I think you're getting him at sub 10K, which is nice. Anytime you get a big-time pitcher at sub 10, that's something you definitely want to look at. So Cueto would be a guy I probably want to use in those all-day tournaments. The only thing you worry about in those all-day tournaments is Cueto probably is going to be heavily owned, so you might want to shift off Cueto, but still, if you're playing cash games all day, I think you can be fine using Cueto, but probably not in a tournament. Kershaw, 12K on FanDuel, 12.8 on DraftKings. So very hard to pay up for a 12K pitcher. Now, he is on the road at San Diego, but it's still very difficult. The total is very low, and he's a heavy favorite. He's like 220 with a 6 total. Not to say that you can't use Kershaw, but he's probably not the #1 guy on my list today because he even though the run total is low at 6 and it is Petco, still it is on the road, and I'd rather it be at home. And Padres have not been hitting, but they do have some potential bats in the lineup that could do some damage. So it's just not a primo matchup for me to be using him. Felix, 11.8 on FanDuel, 11.3 on DraftKings. Definitely a better value on DraftKings. Now, Felix is a -150 against Houston. Oberholzer, it's a 7.5 total. I do think the Mariners are starting to hit a little bit. I think they can get to Oberholzer. Definitely keep an eye on Nelson Cruz in the lineup. That's going to be the big factor for me. Nelson Cruz in the lineup, he could be huge tonight. If he's not in the lineup, that's definitely going to be a factor. But you also want to look at Mark Trumbo as probably a guy as well. So keep an eye on the right-handed bats for the Mariners. Maybe a guy like Rugiano's in play as well. But Felix definitely looks more attractive. Houston strikes out a ton, heavy right-handed bats. Felix could go out there and put up a 15K performance tonight. So I think Felix for me is ahead of Kershaw. You get a little bit of price savings there. David Price, 10.9 FanDuel, 10.7 on DraftKings, so kind of equal pricing there. Problem with Price, he gets the Indians and he gets Salazar. So for me, I'm not going near Price unless it's a tournament. He's probably going to be low owned in tournaments, so that's where I would go there. A guy like Felix is probably going to be heavily owned in tournaments. So if you want to go off Felix and you want to go on Price in a tournament, but Felix for me is a lock in cash games today. I don't have any question about it whatsoever. Talked about Cueto, talked about Hamill. Madison Bumgarner, 10.6 on FanDuel, 10.3 on 10.2 on DraftKings. Again, not a huge price savings there, and not a huge fan of this. He is -170 against Chase Anderson. It is in San Francisco, and the run total is 6.5. Again, Bumgarner here. I love Bumgarner. He he always goes out there and throws a good game. He rarely gets blown up. But for me, it's not the primo matchup as far as top shelf that I'm wanting. I do like it. He's probably more like 3 for me with Felix #1. So Mad Bum, you get about $1,000 price savings. But for me on FanDuel, because I think some of these bats are very soft pricing, I think that I'm going to pay up, get Felix in the cash, and then just find guys like Lorenzo Cain and Adrian Gonzalez who have good splits, maybe aren't swinging a hot bat, but have really good pricing. And I'm just hoping that these guys really can strike gold tonight, maybe on a handful. Michael Pineda, 9.8 on FanDuel, 8.9 on DraftKings. So do like the price on Pineda on DraftKings with his matchup today. And then also we've got Danny Salazar, who is pitching against David Price. But he's 9.1 on FanDuel. He's 9.4 on DraftKings. To me, Salazar screams tournament play because I'm not sure a lot of people are going to be on him going against the Tigers, who have this myth about this. Everybody thinks that they're untouchable to go against. They're not. Arrieta blew him up the other night. I know he gave up 3 runs, but still, he had a 15-point game, and everybody won if you had him. So Salazar can get a 15 against. Now you might not get the win, but I think Salazar at that 9.1 on FanDuel and 9.4 on DraftKings to me represents good value. I think that I start looking at these guys that are sub 10K, and I think, do they have upside to really have one of the top 3 performances of the night? Salazar is one of those guys. He can go get double-digit Ks against the Tigers tonight. I'm not afraid of the Tigers lineup right now. Victor Martinez is not 100%. I don't think Miguel Cabrera is 100%. So I think he can attack that team. 2 totals tonight that are in the 9s: Toronto, Boston, and Minnesota, Texas. You got Joe Kelly and Drew Hutchinson. Now, Drew Hutchinson's been pretty hot. Boston bats, I still don't trust them, although they do seem to be coming around a little bit. Toronto without Edwin Encarnacion, most likely, so definitely keep an eye on that. So this total is 9. It may not be the loaded game that you think. So just be aware that, even though it's Joe Kelly, he is righty. So, just be aware. I'm not sure. I think the Blue Jay stack tonight might be heavily owned and over-owned. So you might want to look at some of those other teams that I talked about earlier. Let people take the Jays and then go with some of those other stacks that I talked about. Minnesota, Texas, run total is 9. It looks like it's Wandy Rodriguez against Tom Malone. So, again, Wandy hasn't been that bad this year, but Texas, the Minnesota Twins crushed left-handed pitching. So the Twins are probably going to be a heavily owned stack tonight. Guys like Dozier, guys like Plouffe, Vargas, definitely keep an eye on those players. And Suzuki, so there's going to be some heavy right-handed Twins lineups tonight. Heavily owned. So definitely, just to be aware, those are probably going to be the most heavily owned stacks. We talked about all the Vegas odds. Here's one that sticks out for me. Jeff Locke, -170 against Philadelphia, and Kevin Correa. Kevin Correa is a gas can. Don't be surprised if people are loading up on the Pirates tonight. But Jeff Locke at -170, I really didn't think I would ever see that. So he's not a very good pitcher, but the Phillies stink. And Locke is probably going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to jump on in tournaments because he's super cheap and he's one of the heaviest favorites of the night. So just be aware about Jeff Locke and the situation about his ownership tonight. I talked about a sneaky stack. I think this one is, not a full-blown stack, but maybe a stack on FanDuel where you get 4 players in, or maybe a mini stack where you go 3 or 4 on DraftKings. What you can do on DraftKings sometimes you can go 4-3-1 because you do have to have 3 different teams. So you can go 4-3-1 on that. A lot of times people go 6-1-1. But I think in this case, the Tampa Bay Rays against John Danks. Look at some of the right-handed bats for the Rays. Guys like Forsythe, maybe guys like Joey Butler. Look at Longoria. I think the Rays tonight against John Danks. I know the Rays are not the best offense, but here's the deal. John Danks stinks against right-handed bats, and you're going to get these Rays at a very, very discounted price. So if you do the 4-3-1 on DraftKings, maybe you take 3 Rays and you load up with some other big team or one of the other teams that I talked about, whether it's the Contrarian, Royals, Cardinals, somebody. But, if you want to win a tournament, you got to be against the grain. You got to be against the curve. You got to go against what everyone else is doing, and you got to take a shot. And sometimes that shot pays off, as we've seen several times. So, again, that's kind of my strategy of what I think you should look at for today. We got Josh coming up at 12 noon Eastern in the Curve. Hit us up in the chat. Hit us up in the forums. We got you covered all day, 24/7 here at rotocurve.com. As we say here, as always, stay classy, DFS.